Welcome back, and today we are diving into six fantasy football players that you should just sit back and let your idiot league mates draft them, because it's not going to go well for them. So, these are just six guys that I am lower than consensus on and don't really see the point in drafting them. So, let's start off with Terry McLaurin, because I think it's probably it's not as much as a hot take as the rest of them. So first off, we can dive into Terry McLaurin's career. And here we go. Nope, that's not it. Give me one sec. Okay. He has been in points per game, wide receiver 29, 20, 29, 22, and 34. With, pretty bad quarterback play. That's where he'd been valued for 5 years of fantasy football. And then all of a sudden last year, best year of his career, best quarterback of his career, best offense of his career. Wide receiver 14 in points per game. So, why are we avoiding Terry McLaurin? Multiple red flags here. The first and most obvious one. He's holding out and he requested a trade. So, him requesting a trade doesn't always mean that trade is going to go through. But number one, if it does, he could easily find himself in a way worse situation. Maybe a better one or one of the same caliber, but could easily be a worse situation. Number two, players that hold out typically get off to a slower start. They haven't been in camp getting work with their quarterbacks. These receivers specifically. We saw this a couple times the past few seasons. Was it CD or Chase that did it 2 years ago? Maybe I'm tripping on that. I should have thought about that more. But Brandon Ayuk last year is a good example. Held out all the way up until the start of the year. Got off to a very slow start and then got injured towards ACL. The point is, he may not be on the team. He may not be ready by week 1. If he is on the team and ready by week 1, he may get off to a slow start. And he has the wide receiver 19 ADP going off of that. And the reason that I don't like it, and I was already off of him a little bit before all this drama. Let me see if I have this tweet. This is from Ron Stewart, and I think it's a great point. So Terry McLaurin got the best QB play of his career, scored 5 touchdowns over expectation, and all he gave you was a wide receiver 14 in points per game finish in a down year for wide receivers. It's a phenomenal point, right? He scored more touchdowns than expected, and I think the blind eye or the hopeful fan very easily will say, hey, what? He got year 1 with Jaden Daniels, now he's going into year 2? Well, clearly they'll be better this year, right? It's not really how it works historically. It's easy to just say that, but 13 touchdowns when he never scored more than 7, sure, maybe he'll still have 7 or 8 or 9 or something, but historically, there's pretty damn good odds those touchdowns are coming down. There's other factors. Maybe there's a slump from Jaden Daniels. Maybe Debo's more involved, blah, blah, blah. You never know. But it's hard for me, especially, to look at a player that I am quite sure there's going to be less scoring and say, hell yeah, I want him on my team. I'm going to get super excited that he is going to not score as much. So, and then another one from Ben Gretsch, similar tweet. Last year, Terry was second in the NFL in receiving touchdowns. Only wide receiver 16, I guess it's 14 in PPR points per game. Going as wide receiver 18 because Daniels is going to elevate him even further. Well, he's also 30 in September and holding out. I'm sure some of you will be able to listen to all the things I just said and say, what? No, this guy's tripping. He'll be back. He'll be fine. He'll have a great connection. Sure. There's obviously a realm. What am I thinking of? There is a world where he's the same guy he was last year. Maybe he has more catches and yards, a couple less touchdowns, and he's the same. But it is hard to draft a guy that just had the best season of his career. That is historically, there is an expectation that he's very much going to come back down to earth a little bit, holding out, not getting reps with the team, could get off to a slow start. There are better options around Terry McLaurin. Secondly, let's go with Tyreel Hill. This is a guy that I was very back and forth on, tough to evaluate. Now I've got more clarity. There are a lot of creators out there that say Tyreel Hill is easily top 10, top 12. He's best steal of the draft. He very much could be. There is certainly a world where Tyreel Hill returns to form and is a top 5 receiver in fantasy football. I am not saying that's not a possibility. That doesn't mean I have to get behind it and put my money on that happening. I think that Tyreel Hill is clearly one of the biggest risks in fantasy. He goes in the 2nd to 3rd round, and there's the famous saying, you can't win your drafts in the early rounds, but you can lose them. So for me, you definitely want to swing for upside in the mid to late rounds. You want to take risks on players that are either going to do nothing or go crazy. Absolutely go for it. First few rounds, not my strategy. Christian McCaffrey could burn you. Tyreel Hill could burn you. There are guys that could put you in a hole immediately. Tyreel Hill is one of them. Here's a tweet from Adam Koffler. Oh, I didn't even mention oblique injury. Tyreel Hill now has an oblique injury and is sidelined. Last year he had a wrist injury. Obviously he didn't do anything without Tua on the field, but he even wasn't the same with Tua on the field. So Adam Koffler's red flags. He already has an oblique injury. Tua hates him. What he means by this is there's plenty of random clips out there of Tua and Tyreek trying to fix their relationship. That's never something you want to hear from a QB wide receiver duo. Mike McDaniel hates him. Mike McDaniel knows that this dude shows up late. He has unexcused absences, shows up late when he feels like it. Bit of a diva wide receiver. He's already been very cryptic of like he requested a trade. He wanted to trade all offseason. There's that video of the guy saying, hey, you just got traded as a prank, and him being like excited about it. And then the guy being like, I was kidding. That was kind of awkward, right? I think he clearly doesn't want to be on this team. And, listen to what you want, but there are just major signs, major red flags. And I haven't even talked about the fact that he is 30 plus years old. Seeing a guy decline when he's 30 years old and then, expecting him to just fix it and think that didn't matter the next season. Historically, that decline is a foreshadowing of more decline or just, being the same receiver you were the past season in your decline. There's also plenty of hype of Jalen Waddle looking like the wide receiver one here. The Dolphins have gone downhill 3 seasons in a row in terms of yards per attempt. Teams know how to guard these deep threats now. That's why Jonnu Smith and Achane had so many receptions last year, because they couldn't throw deep to their receivers. No thanks on the wide receiver 13 ADP here. If he was closer to wide receiver 20, going in the 4th, 5th round, maybe worth a swing. But for me, I'm not going to buy the dip. I'll let someone else take that risk. Third one is going to be Breece Hall. And let's look at his little game log. 2022 was off to a pretty good start. Had a season-ending injury. 2023, wide receiver or running back 2 overall, running back 6 in points per game. Fucking phenomenal year. There was 0 competition for touches in this year. The offense was terrible, but all they did was check down. Whole offense ran through Breece Hall. Had like almost 200 yards rushing in the last week of that year. Great year. And so he's being drafted as a top 3 running back last year and finishes as RB17. So I just think this is another guy that is a huge risk, has a very expensive ADP, and just isn't going to be worth it. Again, similar to Tyreel Hill, there is a world where he says, screw it, I'm finishing as a top 5 back this year. He certainly has the upside, but he's got more downside to me. And the reasons for that being, let's talk about Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen expected to be a regular contributor in committee. Another tweet from Adam Koffler. Braylon Allen is going to fit in beautifully with Justin Fields on read options. His great vision and ability to hit the hole with all of his power is such special ability. So those 2 tweets kind of just show what we've been hearing, which is that this is going to be a lot more work for Braylon Allen than it was last year. A more of a 1A, 1B rather than, let's see, Braylon Allen mix in a little bit here and there. He's going to cut into Breece's workload. Aside from that, bringing in Fields, there are the pros and the cons. Rushing quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, Anthony Richardson, Jaden Daniels, typically these guys do help the efficiency of their running backs. It's a lot easier to be more efficient when you have another threat in the backfield. But at the same time, there are the cons of Fields will take rushing touchdowns. He will. Fields will take rushing yards. This dude has rushed for 1,000 yards in a season before. So take that as a pro or a con, or maybe realize there's pros and cons, whatever you want. For me, just adding more risk to stir the pot. Is that all I had on Braylon Allen? Yes. Another thing, I talked about this in my Vegas Part 2 video, looking at Vegas lines. Now, I used Breece Hall versus James Conner as an example. They were both projected. Their Vegas line is 900 rushing yards, and James Conner was projected for 2 more touchdowns. Obviously, Breece Hall gets more receptions. He only had 7 more last year. That's an RB13 ADP compared to RB18. That's just an example of what Vegas is telling us. Another thing from Nick Erquano. Odds to score 10-plus rushing touchdowns in 2025. Look at all these guys that have better odds than Breece Hall to do that. Derrick Henry, obviously. Dave Montgomery, obviously. Christian McCaffrey, obviously. James Conner, Brian Robinson Jr., Kenneth Walker, Chase Brown. All of those guys go after him except for Chase Brown. Again, well, he's going to have receiving upside. Absolutely. He'll be a pass catcher. But for a guy that has a rushing quarterback that's going to steal touchdowns and carries, Braylon Allen's carving into this workload. This Jets staff doesn't have any commitment to Breece Hall. They didn't draft him. He knows that. He said that in an interview. He knows he has to prove himself. He wasn't the most efficient. They're projected to be a bottom 5 scoring offense. Do I really want to draft my RB1 or RB2 at RB13 that I know is losing work, will have less touchdowns, and is on a bottom 5 offense in the NFL? Why? Why? Chasing upside that there's a slim chance he hits, right? To me, it's not worth the risk. Similarly to Tyreek Hill, I will let somebody else take that risk. He's my RB19. So, before the next 3, if you like to throw money on the NFL and you're doing it for the preseason, or you're waiting for week 1, or you're taking higher or lower than season yard props for players, I got 3 great apps for you. And the first 2 are Underdog and Chalkboard. If you are not on those apps yet, and you join with the code FORTUNE, you can get up to $1,000 free on Underdog and a free half-yard pick to pair your pick with. Chalkboard, you can get up to $100 free, a 100% deposit match only with the code FORTUNE. Put $100 in, all of a sudden you have $200, a free $100. But another thing with that is also their new promo. Step 1, sign up, make an account. Step 2, join with the code FORTUNE. Step 3, you just get $20 in your account. You don't even need to deposit. Why are we trying to miss out on free $20? Wouldn't be me. Third app, if you're already on those 2, a lot of people haven't heard of Dabble. This is another similar one to Chalkboard where you join with the code LIPPER, LIPER, separate code. Make sure you remember that. You'll get a free $10 with no deposit. Again, just free money. Why not use it? And the reason I like Dabble, if you are a season-long prop bettor, Dabble has some interesting lines. I have in my draft guide, Dabble and Underdog season yard lines. If you compare them to sports books and shit like that, Dabble, you can find a 50-yard difference with some of Dabble's. Off the top of my head, if you're taking a higher or lower than for somebody to get 1,000 yards on Underdog, I recommend go checking Dabble. It might be 950. There is a ton of differences in these 2 lines, so I don't know. If you want to be a profitable sports bettor, it's definitely worth looking at other books where you can get a better value on a line. So let's get into my next one, which is going to be Patrick Mahomes. So, yeah, odds are going to have a lot of people disagreeing with me on this one, and that's fine. But let's look at Patrick Mahomes, his history, right? QB1, then QB6, then QB2, then QB5, then QB2. You have a 5-year sample size of him being at least the top 6 quarterback. 2 of them, QB5 and QB6, which is his current price, QB6. Last year, he was QB11 points per game, and the year before, QB10. So the reason that I am kind of avoiding him is just he's too expensive. It's as simple as that. I avoided CJ Stroud last year because he was being drafted at his ceiling at QB5, to where if he wasn't an MVP candidate throwing 4,500 yards and 40-plus touchdowns, he was not returning that ADP, and he didn't do that. I'm not saying I knew CJ Stroud was going to have a sophomore slump. No, I thought he would do better than he did, but I did realize that you're drafting him at his ceiling, so if he doesn't hit his ceiling, bust. And I think it's the same for Mahomes this year. Now, similarly to some of the guys earlier in this video, I realized Patrick Mahomes, 100% there's a realm of possibility and a world where he goes out again and throws for 4,700 yards, 45 touchdowns, and he's a top 3 quarterback. He could so do that, and I could look stupid. But over the past 2 years, this offense has changed. He's not gunslinging it, throwing the deep ball. They're not putting up 30 points per game. Their defense is elite. They're staying very close in games. Winning by 3 to 7 points, scoring 24 points. They run the ball more. They dink and dunk to Kelce and Rice more. It's a different style. They had their lowest pass rate of Mahomes' career last year, and I'm not saying that won't change. Maybe now that they have Rice, Worthy, Kelce, Pacheco all healthy and back, maybe he does do this. But the point here is I'm not trying to draft a guy that doesn't have the same rushing upside as the 4 elite fantasy quarterbacks, and he goes like a round or 2 after them, where realistically, I talked about this in my QB tiers video, I would way rather wait on a Bo Nix, a Jared Goff, a Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, Justin Fields. These guys go way later, and they have just as much upside, I think, as Mahomes to finish around this QB6 ADP. So it's just in terms of value, and if I'm not fully behind Mahomes and I'm not so confident that he's going to return this ADP or hit his ceiling, it's not worth pulling the trigger. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not a Mahomes hater. I'm not saying he can't be a top 3 quarterback. He could do it. But it's very expensive for a guy that hasn't done it since 2022. Hasn't been returning that ADP. He's the best QB in the NFL, but this is fantasy football. All right. My second to last one. Let's get the Travis Kelce out. I be yapping about Kelce in all of my videos, but so I'll give kind of a quick spiel. It's a price thing for Kelce as well, but let's talk about he declined for 2 years in a row now. We saw a slight dip in 2023, and then we saw an even larger dip last year. This is a 35-year-old who has regressed for 2 seasons in a row that's still being drafted as a top 6 tight end. Last year, when Rashee Rice was on the field, he averaged 4 targets, under 3 catches, and under 25 yards per game. Only a 3-game sample size, but that dink and dunk short, fine Travis Kelce, when Rice is on the field, that is his job. And he's only going to miss 3 to 4 games per Drew Davenport, who is a lawyer and fantasy football creator that knows a shit ton about how this stuff works. So aside from Rice taking all of his good shit, last year, he barely cracked the top 5 tight ends in this down year. And that was with Marquise Brown out for most of the year. Rashee Rice out for the entire year after week 3. Xavier Worthy not really doing shit till the end of the season, where he kind of broke out a little bit. And Isaiah Pacheco out for week 3 and on, and then returned as still clearly injured. Everyone on his team, outside of Xavier Worthy, missed the year, and Worthy is just obviously also one of those rookies that they take a while to fucking develop and do shit. He could not possibly have asked for a better situation to thrive in, with literally no one else to throw the ball to outside of Worthy, who wasn't developed yet. All of a sudden this year, Isaiah Pacheco back and healthy. Rashee Rice, after his 3 to 4 game suspension, will be back and the number 1 target on the team. Xavier Worthy is now going into year 2 with more development. Marquise Brown is back. This is a crowded-ass offense that isn't the highest in passing attempts these days. I don't get it. I don't get the tight end 6 ADP. I think you're drafting him at his ceiling, a guy that clearly isn't the same. I know he had a lot of red zone targets that didn't convert, and he only had 3 touchdowns last year, which could go up. But I just think the target share in general is not going to be the same. You're drafting him ahead of guys like Mark Andrews, Evan Ingram, David Njoku, the rookie tight ends, Tucker Kraft. I literally would not be surprised one single bit if those guys, not all of them, but some of them, outperform or match Travis Kelce's points per game in fantasy. So this is just a price thing. I miss me with the reaching on a 35-year-old that clearly they don't care about using till the playoffs. The only reason you can see them doing that last year, and then everyone got hurt, and then they had to use him. But Andy Reid has said publicly, I know he's getting older. He thinks he's not. I know he is. I know how to manage his workload. No, thank you. And the last guy, just a brief one. I don't have a ton to back it up. More of a gut feeling, I guess. But history also kind of helps out, and that's going to be Cooper Kupp. I don't understand the intrigue here. It's not like he's expensive, right? He's like the wide receiver 50, so you're not going to lose your league by taking him, but I don't see the point. So obviously, here's his game log, started off at 28, 15, 730, blah, blah, blah. Stafford comes in. He wins the Triple Crown wide receiver 1 the next year. And this is where we'll start getting to our point. Wide receiver 1 in points per game for the first 9 games. Almost gets to 1,000 yards already. Out for the year. The next year, drafted in the top 10. Wide receiver 23 in points per game. Missed 5 games. Last year, again, drafted our top 12, top 15. He's the wide receiver 19 in points per game, misses 5 games. He's just dealing with injuries for 3 seasons in a row now. Very injury prone. Again, I'm not the one to say, hey, Cooper Kupp is obviously going to get hurt again. That's how injuries work. We know who's getting injured. He could go out and play 17 games and make me look stupid. But he hasn't played more than 12 games since 2021. It's at least something to note. Aside from that, God, what is he, 30, 31, 32? I don't know. I will look that up. But he is on the Seahawks now, where Jackson Smith and Jigba, Cooper Kupp is 32. JSN is the clear number 1 option here, and everyone knows that. Cooper Kupp is the number 2 option, and that's okay. Are we sure? Are we sure that Sam Darnold is going to be Sam Darnold from last year without Kevin O'Connell in this Minnesota situation helping him out a shit ton? I'm not so sure whether he gets benched or he regresses. He returns to Sam Darnold. There's a piece of risk in there. JSN is the number 1 target, but we know how run-heavy this offense wants to be. That's just all they've talked about. Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, and we saw a little sneak peek in the preseason with their RB3 and 4. This team is going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. So I don't know if the volume will be there, and I don't know how the quality of targets is going to be. But what it is for me, and I said this in a previous video, I said, what is the intrigue of a, 32-year-old wide receiver that hasn't stayed healthy in 3 years, that's now on a new team in a worse offense and a worse quarterback? What's the intrigue there? Somebody did comment. Listen, people said this about Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen's had a great 2 years in Carolina. He's 35. Once he left the Vikings, everyone threw him to the curb, and he shut everyone up. I said, you know what? That is a very valid point. I'll give you that. There's a realm of possibility where Cooper Kupp does that. But that doesn't mean I'm going to bet on that kind of anomaly. That is an anomaly. Historically, 32-plus-year-old receivers that have regressed year by year, that have dealt with injuries, they go to a worse offense with a worse quarterback. I don't know, man. That is not something I'm going to bet on. That's not something I'm going to get excited on. He goes around guys like Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Emeka Ibuka, Jaden Higgins, Matthew Golden. I don't know, a couple other guys that I think this range, you're on the board. Do I want to take an injury-prone, washed Cooper Kupp He is washed in my opinion. Or, that maybe beats the ADP a little bit. Or do I want to take a young stud who could break out and win me my league? And Jaden Higgins, Matthew Golden, Emeka Egbuka, Josh Downs, guys like that, man. This range of fantasy drafts is upside only. You're not going to win your league by taking Cooper Kupp. I promise you that. You're not going to win your league by taking him. You could win your league with Emeka Egbuka being a league winner. Jaden Higgins maybe being a top 24 receiver. Like, there are just younger guys that could break out here. I'm not going to bet on the wide receiver 50 Cooper Kupp to break out. Hopefully that makes sense. Before I end this, there is 2 more apps that I want to shout out, and this is if you're not a seasoned prop bettor, if you're not a prop guy in general, and you're just a sportsbook guy. Novig is a new app. This is where the states are that it's available in. Most states, you join with the code FORTUNE, you can get up to $100 free. It's a phenomenal app. Secondly, if you're not 21 and you would like to be on a sportsbook where you can bet on games and spreads and stuff, you can do it. If you're 18 on Rebet, joining with the code FORTUNE gets you a 100% deposit match up to $100. I wish I knew that or had that when I was under 21. Phenomenal app as well. But that's going to wrap it up. Let me know how much you hate me and how much you disagree with my terrible takes that I didn't back up at all in the comments. But definitely leave a like or comment if you did enjoy this video. Like I said, likes and comments tell me what I need to do more of. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.